Uh, it's simple. It's because Mr. Sushen Gupta and his family are very reputed aerospace and defense agents. You know, it's been 3 generations of Gupta who has been doing this kind of job, and they are famous for this among international aerospace companies. And so, as they are reputed to be very influential, it must be the reason why they've been hired by Dassault for the Rafale deal.
The Rafale controversy has reignited over the last week after a French online journal, Mediapart, claimed that Dassault Aviation, which manufactures the Rafale jets, paid €1 million to an Indian middleman in connection with the deal for 36 fighter jets. Now remember, the Rafale deal was one of India's biggest defense deals in over 2 decades, but the deal has been under the scanner since 2016. To understand the recent allegations made by Mediapart in its investigation, we are in conversation with Yann Philippin of Mediapart, which is an independent French online investigative journal that has revealed some explosive details on the Rafale deal. Thank you so much, Yann, for taking out time and speaking to me.
Thanks to you.
I'd first like to begin by asking, we've read multiple reports online around the Rafale scam. Could you break it down for us to understand the scam better and just take us through the details? Who gave millions of euros to whom and who benefited from this deal?
Yes, this investigation is, sorry, 1, 2, 3, you'll do the editing. This Rafale Papers investigation by Mediapart is based on confidential documents that come from a case file of the Enforcement Directorate of India in another case, which is the sale of helicopters, the Augusta Westland case.
Right.
And while investigating this case, the agents of the Enforcement Directorate get interested into a man whose name is Sushen Gupta, who is an agent, a middleman in defense deal. And they discovered that he acted not only for the helicopters, but also for the Rafale deal. And the main findings of the Enforcement Directorate's investigations are the following. First, Mr. Gupta received millions of euros from Dassault through dubious IT contracts into offshore bank accounts, so secret commissions. Right. Second, in a note that is on all evidence destined to Dassault in 2012, Mr. Gupta makes very explicit warnings like people in office are asking for money. Now you started, you have to finish, or if we don't pay these people, they will send us to jail. And then 3 years later, in 2015, the same Mr. Gupta, who had these very explicit comments, managed to obtain very sensitive and confidential information from the Ministry of Defense of India about the activity of the Indian negotiating team that was negotiating the Rafale contract with the French Ministry of Defense. And we talk about really sensitive information, for instance, about how the Indian negotiators were calculating the fair price for the planes. And then, and last but not least, we proved, thanks to these documents, that the French side managed to remove the anti-corruption clauses from the contract. So that are the main revelations from our investigation.
Right. Yann, as per the report, about €1 million, and that is not the fixed figure as of now. I'm sure it can go higher.
No, this is more. I'm sorry. This is not only €1 million. €1 million is for one specific purchase, the purchase of plane models, but the total offshore payments that we spotted thanks to our documents is somewhere between 4 and 20 million euros, depending on the level of proof.
Right. Now, as per the report, this €1 million amount was paid to Sushen Gupta as a gift, and he's been referred to the middleman in your report. Now, how was this done, and where was this money targeted at? Have you been able to find out the reason for this transaction?
Yes, this specific payment of €1 million was not offshore. It was paid to an Indian company called Dassault Solution.
Right.
But what is strange about this payment is that it was for the purchase of 50 Rafale models. And you know, €1 million is quite expensive for 50 models. That makes 20,000 euros a model. You know, for this money, you can have a nice real car, for instance, and not a model of plane. And what is also suspicious is that this payment has been made only a few months after the contract has been signed. And also, despite these models seems to have been delivered, some of them have been spotted all around India. When the French anti-corruption agency spotted this strange payment, Dassault was very embarrassed and didn't at the time provide to the investigators, the French investigators, proof that these models had been delivered, despite it seems they have been delivered. So what we can guess is that Dassault was embarrassed that through this purchase of models, the French anti-corruption agency could try to get interest into Sushen Gupta, the man who received the money.
Absolutely. Now, adding on to what you just said, let's talk about the price battle for Rafale jets. Now, as you mentioned, each model of Rafale fighter jet was priced at 20,000 euros. Do you find this strange, especially when it's a government to government deal?
Oh, sorry, that is different. In fact, this purchase of Rafale models is not directly connected to the deal itself. You know, it's a sum of money that has been paid by Dassault to DEFSIS, and Dassault didn't confirm this. But what we can guess is that it could be some of the offsets. You know, that the government of India forced Dassault to give to Indian companies half the amount of the deal, so nearly 4 billion euros. And DevSafe's solution, the company which is owned by Mr. Gupta and his family, is one of the Indian companies that benefit from these huge offset contracts.
Absolutely. Yann, it appears from your report that Sushen Gupta knew about the Rafale deal and has played a very important role in this entire deal. Now, he's the same person, as you mentioned, who's been named in another VVIP chopper scam before. Why do you think has his name reappeared, and how exactly is he involved there?
It's simple. It's because Mr. Sushen Gupta and his family are very reputed aerospace and defense agents. You know, it's been 3 generations of Gupta who has been doing this kind of job, and they are famous for this among international aerospace companies. And so, as they are reputed to be very influential, it must be the reason why they've been hired by Dassault for the Rafale deal.
Absolutely. Jan, after a report came out, Dassault Aviation has dismissed all the allegations. They said that they have all the checks and mechanisms in place to prevent any sort of corruption.
It's not true. It's not what they said.
What exactly is it?
What they said is that they comply with OECD standards that prevents corruption. But if you read their press release, they did not deny one single information from our reports, just not one. They didn't deny any facts. All what they did is a very vague press release saying that they are compliant with international anti-corruption rules, but that's it.
Do you think
so they never denied that they hired Sushen Gupta or that they paid €1 million of offshore commissions to him?
Right. Do you think they had all the checks and mechanisms in place to prevent any corruption, as they've mentioned in their statement?
That's not the point. You know, the point is not do they have internal rules against corruption? The question is, what did they do for real? You know, and part of the answer to this is in all what I told you before.
Right. Yann, this is not the first time that this scam, the Rafale scam, has made it to the headlines. Even before, as for the viewers, I can mention this deal was signed in 2016. And ever since then, there have been accusations and allegations of corruption for the Indian government, for the Indian Prime Minister, and much more. Now, after your report, do you think anything will change? Do you think there is anything different that your report is adding that can prompt the government to take action?
That's a real question, because, you know, after all the revelations that we made, I'm personally convinced that there is now enough evidence on the table so that a real official formal investigation has been opened. And the real question raised by our investigation in India is that the Indian Enforcement Directorate has these documents for almost 2 years. I must remind you that these documents come from a case file of the Enforcement Directorate. So the question is, what did they do with this information? And apparently there's been no visible sign that they opened a probe about this. And I really would like them to answer and to tell the Indian people what they did with this information, and if they plan or if they did open an
Hmm.
investigation or not.
Do you think, based on your investigation and research, this scam warrants a formal investigation? Because it's been, I think, close to 5 years. And as you mentioned, the Enforcement Directorate and so many agencies have been just sitting on the evidence. Do you think it's time for them to act? And what exactly should be the next step?
As I told you, I'm really convinced that now there is enough evidence on the table so that formal investigations are opened, both in India and in France.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yann, again for taking our time and speaking to us. You've taken us through some very important details from your report. And thank you so much for taking our time.
Thanks very much for your invitation.
Thank you.